Hey guys, so I was trying to come up with a title for this video that resembled something like Why Kingpin Coming Back Just Can't Work, or Why Kingpin Running for Mayor in Born Again is an inherently broken concept, but anything I came up with just felt like a bit of a mouthful, and frankly that latter one kind of feels a bit hyperbolic. Because until Daredevil Born Again comes out, I can't definitively say that, can I? For all I know, they'll actually find a really good workaround to the resolution of Daredevil Season 3 that doesn't inherently fuck with it logistically. I just don't really see how that's possible yet, and that's what this video's about. The title I chose was the most accurate I could think of to fully convey my thoughts on the concept, ones which I had pretty much from the moment it was confirmed this show would serve as a continuation of the Netflix series, but even more so now that I finally finished rewatching all 3 seasons in preparation for Born Again. The biggest concern I have going into this new show is that no matter what kinds of justifications you try to come up with for it, I think it just completely undermined the ending of Daredevil Season 3 by having Kingpin return to any meaningful form of power, and especially the kind of power he'll be striving for in Born Again, seeing as he's apparently running for mayor. And not all of that is necessarily the fault of this show, is it? I mean, it was the Hawkeye and Echo shows that really established that Fisk was back in action, but I think regardless of where you place the blame, we have an issue here. And this is of course because of the pesky little deal Matt made with Fisk at the end of their final confrontation, which, for those of you who might need reminding, went a little something like this. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't watched the Netflix show. Don't really know what you're doing here if that's the case, though. So Wilson's wife, Vanessa, ordered the death of Special Agent Ray Nadeem right in front of Felix Manning, a fixer who worked for Fisk that told Matt about him having witnessed this crime, meaning Matt could then use that to pursue a legal case against her as well. In exchange for Fisk quietly accepting his fate, going back to prison, and keeping Daredevil's identity a secret and not going after any of Matt's friends, Matt would make sure Vanessa didn't join him in jail. This is at best a tentative deal, and I'm not saying there aren't ways of subverting that, though you do have to take logistical care in terms of how that gets facilitated without Matt's secret identity being exposed, Foggy and Karen getting killed, or any number of other consequences as a result of Fisk being free. So like I said, I'm gonna hold off on questioning any of that stuff until the show is actually out and we can judge for ourselves whether that makes any sense. But I think that's all regardless of the much more meaningful point here, and to talk about that, we need to talk about Matt's no-kill rule. The no-kill rule has been a main staple of Matt's character throughout most of the show, and it's defined a great deal of the conflicts and how they're ultimately addressed. Most people are quick to point to the rooftop scenes between him and Frank Castle during the Season 2 Punisher arc, where the two vigilantes argue about the effectiveness of Frank's way of handling criminals. Frank argues that while it may be ugly and uncomfortable, his way makes it so that the people out there doing bad things, hurting the innocent, are no longer an issue by the time he's done with them.
You hit them and they get back up, I hit them and they stay down!
Matt can moralize all he wants about how it might tarnish his soul, but at the end of the day, Frank gets results, and they're pretty damn permanent. And the only real recourse Matt can give to this pragmatic argument is that he believes everyone deserves a chance at redemption, something that's heavily informed by his Catholic devotion, which we'll get into later. Now, I don't actually think Season 2 does the best job handling the no-kill rule, and that's mainly to do with the Hands subplot, aka the weakest plotline on the whole show. See, the no-kill rule only really works if you can have the characters find a viable alternative to killing the enemy. With Fisk in Season 1, they were able to put him behind bars through all the legal above-board channels. Daredevil helped push things along the way, but ultimately it was Matt, Foggy, and Karen exploiting the systems in place to take him down. Matt had been having doubts that someone as powerful as him could be stopped that way, and was strongly considering the possibility that he would have to kill him, but they found another way. But the Hand is this sprawling global organization that's been around for centuries on top of centuries, and Matt knows very little about them. He doesn't know how many there are, who their leadership is. For all he knows, Nobu is the guy in charge. And by the way, these are people who apparently have the ability to resurrect their own, which means even if you do manage to actually kill one of them, they may just end up coming back to life. You have to basically kill them in a very specific way so that I guess their bodies are unrecoverable, which Matt has no idea how to do because, again, he knows nothing about these guys. With an enemy this nebulous and this vast, where do you even begin to start trying to destroy them? Well, I have no idea, but the point is, neither does the show. It never actually presents us with any solution, one way or another. By the time the season finale rolls around, they still basically know nothing about their enemy, and now they're gearing up for the final confrontation. This scene really frustrates me, because Matt kinda just spouts off a bunch of nice-sounding bullshit about going after the Hand their way and not Stick's, because Stick is a mean old grump who likes killing, but we're better than that, you see.
You will kill him?
No, I would make him a martyr. I wanted to throne him, defrock him, and let him rot in a cell. Show this cult of his that they're holy men. Isn't anything but a guy.
Yeah, that's all fine and good, Matthew, but how do you plan to do any of those things, and why are we meant to believe that's actually going to work? Also, Nobu isn't even the leader of the Hand, and you have no real reason to believe he is, so even if you somehow expect you'll be able to accomplish any of that, why do you then assume the rest of the Hand's operatives will just stop trying to go after Elektra, the person that you know they actually view as their leader anyway? The final fight is literally just them fighting on a rooftop, and then Elektra dies, Punisher shows up and helps Matt by gunning down a couple ninjas, and Matt throws Nobu off the roof. A couple things worth noting about that. I guess he's grateful and all for the assist, but Daredevil made a pretty big stink at multiple points about Punisher killing people, and even went out of his way to stop him from doing so during the heat of combat, so I guess Matt's just too busy fighting for his fucking life right now to really moralize. Also, I know Nobu has survived fatal injuries once before, but Matt has no idea how he did that or what state his body would need to be in for resurrection to be possible, so when he throws him off the roof here, I don't know, it kind of feels like he was trying to kill him. You know, I'm just saying. Now, right now, I can hear a lot of you guys saying, well, come on, Sheev, what was Matt supposed to do here? And that's exactly my point. Like, I think Matt did the best he could in the situation he was in, but there really wasn't much that could be done against an organization this widespread and powerful, especially if you're not willing to kill anyone. My point is that the show never provides a sufficient alternative to simply killing all the people in charge of the Hand, so Matt's poetic diatribe about doing it his own way and finding a better solution just doesn't really mean anything, does it? And then Defenders comes along and reinforces the point that the only way the Hand can ultimately be defeated is by killing all of its figureheads, I guess. I'd still argue that's a bit too neat given how large this organization is advertised to be. Like, surely there'd be some other high-ranking Hand operatives out there who'd make a play for power in the absence of the Five Fingers. But either way, the same thing is clear. The only way the Defenders were able to win the day was by basically just killing the bad guys, right? I say all this to say that Matt's no-kill rule is a great narrative device to frame a lot of his interpersonal and external conflicts on the show, if done right, but only if you present a reasonable solution to the problem at hand that can only be found if you're willing to do whatever it takes to find another way. And that brings us nicely to Season 3, which gives Matt a really great arc to do with faith and redemption, two core components that make up the no-kill rule, like I said earlier. He starts the season off angry at the world and at God for being dealt such a shit hand time and time again. He feels completely hopeless and like nothing he does is actually making a difference, and all of this is compounded when he finds out that Wilson Fisk just got out of prison. So where I just spent all that time criticizing the Hand plotline for the way it fails to properly develop the no-kill rule, I would say this season builds on it in the best way possible. It reincorporates the main internal conflict Matt faces in Season 1 when dealing with Kingpin the first time around, and it actually bothers to challenge the arguments Frank made to Matt on the rooftop. I mean, maybe he has a point, right? Clearly going after Fisk the right way just didn't work. Clearly his seemingly endless power and wealth has afforded him the ability to essentially place himself above the law, and the only way to actually bring him down is to take him out permanently, to make sure he doesn't get back up, as Frank would put it. One of the main hangups for Matt has always been that he feels like an act like that would tarnish his soul, and then his chance at redemption is completely lost forever. But now he's at a point where he feels that that's an outcome he just has to accept if it means taking Fisk out of the equation. In fact, he even plays around with the idea that maybe doing this is what will allow him to be redeemed.
There is no atoning for that. Okay, there's no way to come back from it.
What if it is the way back for me?
The thing I'm ultimately getting at here is that when you've made the no-kill rule central to Matt's character arc, then you have to meaningfully develop how that's going to play out practically, not just in vague, flowery idealism like in Season 2. Matt's convinced the only way to stop Kingpin is by killing him, so you have to show him that it can still be done without damaging what makes him who he is, without destroying his soul. And that's exactly what happens thanks to two key points. I already mentioned the deal Matt made regarding keeping Vanessa out of jail, but that in itself wouldn't have been enough had there not been good reason for the authorities to take Fisk back into custody, and that's facilitated entirely by the actions of one man. Agent Nadeem sacrificed his life to ensure that his testimony against Fisk got seen by everyone, and since it was looked at as his dying declaration, all the things he outed him for were considered admissible in a court of law. Nadeem's arc is one of my favorites of any fictional character because it really does encapsulate that theme of redemption. He tried so hard to elevate his own status because his selfish pride told him that he had had to do that for his wife and son, only to realize all too late that they never needed that from him, and that his continuing to compromise on his own morals was only hurting them in the long run. But more importantly, for the sake of this video, everything to do with Nadeem really seems to bolster the idea initially that Fisk is all-powerful. Every single aspect of his story is controlled by Kingpin, even down to the fact that he made him financially vulnerable enough to concede to Fisk's wishes when the time came to strike a deal and get him out of prison. Yet, despite all of that, Nadeem did something Kingpin couldn't have predicted, and it's what ultimately led to his downfall. Because of what he did, Matt didn't have to sacrifice his soul to bring Fisk down. But even more importantly, I think, from the logistical side of this, the finality of Kingpin's defeat here is kind of necessary, otherwise there's really no point to it, right? Like, they brought him down this way in season 1, but he found a way to cheat the system, and was basically back at full power just a couple of years later. So this time, his arrest has to be different, otherwise what's to stop him from just being out in another couple of years to start the process all over again? And you might say that's what makes him such a compelling threat, but I say it undermines the entire point of that arc Matt went on. Because no, the no-kill rule isn't a solution at that point. It might temporarily slap a band-aid on it, but eventually something's gotta give here. Either Matt finally accepts the idea that he has to kill Kingpin, or they're just gonna be at this Sisyphean battle for the rest of their lives, and that's a bit hopeless, isn't it? Now, I should be clear that you can have whatever perspective you want on the idea of the no-kill rule in actual practice. I think if we're looking at it realistically, it is a bit of a pipe dream. There are plenty of powerful men in our own world who have so much wealth and so much status that the law effectively doesn't apply to them. Some who can even get elected president despite having multiple felonies under their belt. But whether or not it's realistic isn't actually relevant. If the show is telling you the no-kill rule can work, and make no mistake, that is what it's trying to tell us by the resolution of Matt's arc, then you can't just undermine that by saying, no, actually it really doesn't. And considering the way in which Nadeem was able to bring Fisk down, I don't really see any way for him to cheat the system like that again. The FBI and other authorities are going to be taking extra measures that they weren't before to make sure that he's never able to get so many of their own in his pocket again. And the NYPD is already majorly composed of officers who hate Fisk by the time of season 3, but especially after all this comes out. And whatever goodwill he may have been building in the public opinion is most certainly gone by the end of this story. So it's going to be a really hard sell to convince me that not only is he out and back to running his criminal enterprise, but that he's actually running for mayor. I just don't think there's any way of making that a reality, so the show is already working at a huge disadvantage here before a single episode is even out. But that's pretty much it. I wanted to get this video out real quick before Born Again comes out, because I realized I had a lot to say about this particular topic after finishing the rewatch, and I didn't want to bog down the pacing of whatever Born Again coverage I end up doing by going over all this in as much detail as I felt it deserved. So thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to join the Discord server if you haven't already. Support me on Patreon or become a channel member if you want to give money to a worthy cause of funding my Dr. Pepper addiction. But most importantly of all, actually, no, that's it. I didn't have anything else to say. I didn't even write anything else in the script. I guess I just figured I'd wing it, and then I failed to do that too. Okay, bye.